It is the Final Word Cricket Podcast Season 17, Episode 7. What a massive episode we have ahead of us. Adam Collins with you. Down the screen with me in the Adelaide Hills, it's Bharat Sundaresan. Terrific to have you back with me on a weekly show with Geoff still doing his thing in the States. It's possible we're going to have a voice note to drop in from Geoff giving an update. I don't know yet. Maybe we will. If we do, I'll drop it in. If we don't, I won't. We've got so much to get into because it is... Well, we're nearing that time of year when the first test squad will be named for Australia. The Indian A side are already in town to start their series against Australia A tomorrow. Sheffield Shield, so much going on around that. Mercantile Mutual Cup, some big headlines emerging from that as well. We've got leadership bans being overturned. We've got major retirements. We've got incredible test results both in Pakistan and in India. Quite a bit going on below the surface as well in that South Africa-Bangladesh series, which we're well into by the time we're recording this episode. Women's cricket in India, the WBBL is starting. Strap in. This is going to be a heavy-duty show, and no one better than you to be with me for that. Hello.
Hello, Colo. It's probably the last time we're doing this virtually because it's that time of the year when we generally stand side to side and do this on a daily basis. Right? You introducing me is as much a part of my summer as is watching cricket or talking about cricket. So I can't wait for that. So I'm going to treat this as a little appetizer for the Colo and Bash show once that gets going down the road.
It's a bit of a net for us, isn't it? Because you're right. When we get into the season with SEN Test Cricket, I saw you decked out in your commentary blazer. I like that touch. I suppose I'll get mine when I get back to the country ahead of the Perth Test match. But yeah, I saw you guys all at MCG doing your thing the other day, which was really nice. So we'll be into our swing on that. Just on that, by the way, I was in Melbourne last week, and I don't want to talk about this in any real depth, but just wanted to say that it's very well known in our Final Word community and beyond that there was a death in my close circle. One of my best friends died a couple of weeks ago when I was back in Melbourne for the memorial service last week. That's been a huge thing for me, and it's remarkable how many people got in touch to pass on their condolences at this really tough time. So I'm back in England now with my family after that whirlwind visit to Australia, which gave me the chance to see a few people there and do the things that we tend to do. But the real reason I was back was to be with my people, really. Thank you to everyone who was really understanding of what I was going through, what we were all going through in our little world with the passing of our great mate Chris Toche. So just wanted to note that off the top.
And I'm so glad you got a chance to celebrate his life, Adam. I did meet a lot of people who had met you. I think if not at the funeral, if at the wake, and it's not something that you want glowing compliments for, but I heard from everyone that whatever you said, whatever words you used was very heartwarming, and I'm not surprised at all. But I wanted to pass on my condolences to you as well and the family. But it's just a reminder, isn't it? So whatever we do, whatever this is, and whatever we get excited about and down about, there's something so much bigger and greater than that. So I'm glad you got to be there with your close friends and family.
That was I suppose the cold comfort and all of this is we're all together through all of that. So, it's kind of a weird, for me anyway, it's been a weird couple of weeks because I've known the book's been coming out, the Glenn Maxwell book that's released. Well, at the day we're recording this, Wednesday, the 30th of October is the release date. So there's been all of the coverage over the weekend and all of the extracts and the stories and the reaction and the media blitz and all the rest of it. So, it's been a bit of a roller coaster in my world, knowing that this was on the horizon. It was quite funny, actually. It was using an old muscle of mine, preparing a media blitz, because in effect, Ben Tippett, Maxie's manager, and I organised all the PR for the book. And it's like arranging the media schedule for the Treasurer the day after the federal budget, when they're out there doing appearance after appearance after appearance, and you're watching it and you're trying to manage it to the best you can. But I'm really proud of Glenn, and obviously we had an interview that went out with him as the embargo came off, as is the jargon, on the book a few days ago ahead of today's formal release. And Pat Cummins has got a book out today as well, which I'm looking forward to reading. Jimmy Anderson's is out next week, so we're in that season, in that period of time before Christmas when cricketers, well, occasionally have books out. As Gideon made the point last week, that there might be fewer cricket books by cricketers than there used to be for whatever reason. But yeah, all of the different stories doing the rounds and trying to stay on top of that. I kind of knew there'd be a Sehwag angle that would go nuts in India, predictably, and of course how graphic the leg break was, with how close he came to losing function in that foot. We had a sense that some of the Langer passages would go around due to the extract that was in the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. He's want to play Test cricket. Again, being front and center. And also, you can't control everything, right? Like, there were a series of angles around, like, alcohol, which kind of came from nowhere, because the book does a really good job of addressing what happened the night he broke his leg, which wasn't booze-related at all. It was, as he explained to us, he was the designated driver that night, and what happened when he fell off the golf cart similarly had nothing to do with them drinking. It was the very opposite of that. But nevertheless, it somehow became a headline in some places, which gave the usual aggregator machines and the websites that just feed off other news the chance to write other stories. So we weren't necessarily anticipating that, but I guess that's the fun of the fair when something goes into the public domain. You don't quite know which way it's going to go, but mostly we're just grateful at the moment that the book's been really well received and that people are enjoying it, and that Maxie's been happy to sort of tell his story in this way has been something that people are appreciating.
And I had the pleasure of interviewing Maxi as well, I think through Ben 10 days ago. Obviously, like with everything I'm behind the 8 ball, as you know, Adam, but that my interview will be going out soon as well, and there will be excerpts of that wonderful book that you co-written with him in Crick Buzz and everywhere else I contribute to. But it's one of those books, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting next to me or across the screen from me. It's just it's so breezy, and I said this to Maxi as well when I interviewed him. It's reading it is like talking to Glenn Maxwell, but also watching him bat, right? Like you think the innings is going in one direction, and then he does something and you go somewhere else, but then you come back to it, and it's and you and I are the same as well, aren't we, Adam? So I guess, like, you, me, and Maxi kind of connect at some deep level where we can't stick to one thing, but we always come back to where we started. So no, it was a fun read. I could just go through it so quickly, and those are often the best books to read, especially when it comes to sports. So no, it's great. And I just listening to you talk about the media blitz and just how there are so many different angles that have already come out from the book. It must be a pretty new lesson for you as well, right? Because I'm guessing when you were doing the media blitzes in your other world, in the political world, social media wasn't as big as it is now. It must have been like something different for you. The fact that all it took was a couple of excerpts, and there are so many different angles. I saw the former head of cricket, Victoria, has come out and said no, he was never dropped because he tried to sign up for New South Wales. So that's another angle that's played out as well. But I guess it's just the world we're doing. One thing goes out and it's like a Diwali firecracker.
Yeah, that's right. That was quite funny, that I seeing some response to that passage, and yes, best I don't weigh in, but it's all there in the book, as they say. It's all there in print, and people can make their own minds up about the recollection of that when he was, just coincidentally left out of a Shield team, having made it clear that he wanted to move to New South Wales on the direction of Pat Howard. Having led the Victorian batting averages the previous year, and being told by Cricket Australia that he was in the running for a test spot that year, and he just happened to be dropped for the first round of the Shield. Funny that. Anyway, we had an email from a listener, James Dudley, which I just wanted to quote from as well. The mental health side of things here, he said, James, this is, it's inspiring to see Maxi and many of his teammates openly discussing mental health issues, showing that it's completely normal to face these challenges, and the support is out there, whether from friends or other networks. I played grade cricket in Sydney growing up, and let's just say that even a decade on, this kind of conversation in that setting would have been unimaginable. So it's great to see some good work done in this area. And he says that it's in his top 5 Final Word episodes ever. So that's very nice. Thank you, James. So you can listen to Glenn in his own words, or you can watch him on God knows how many other platforms. He's pretty much doing every podcast. So you can catch up with him there at some point. And before we move away from the intro segment, which is, as always, with you and me, going rather deep, the live shows. The live shows, you'll be doing Adelaide's with us, as will Maxi. He's also doing Melbourne and Sydney. Perth and Brisbane, he's not doing. It's kind of a bit of a book tour meshed in and molded in with our live shows this year, naturally, given the nature of this book and so on. But lots of announcements to come with other guests who will be joining him and in other cities with us. But just wanted to reiterate something that I said last week. We've got this book bundle going with the live show ticket. So the book's $36 recommended retail price, but you effectively get it for $25 if you buy it in conjunction with a live show ticket. So nice discount there. He'll also sign it personally, do a photo with you at the live show, give it to you there, all that kind of thing. If you're Melbourne, Sydney, or Adelaide, and if you're in Perth or Brisbane, he'll still sign you the book and write your name in it and all the rest of it. And I'm sure he'll happily take a photo with you when he's in your city, but he won't physically be at those live shows. But yeah, $60 if you're a patron, $65 if you're not. That gets you both access to the show, and these are always the highlight of Geoff and my year. And a copy of The Showman, which you'll get handed to you by the man himself if you're in those 3 cities, Glenn Maxwell. So jump on. We're in every city. We're Adelaide with Glenn 2 nights before the test, and we're in Melbourne on the 29th of November, our biggest ever show, but the others being Perth, Brisbane, and Sydney are aligned with the test match, Sydney being night 5 and Perth and Brisbane being the night before. So it's all there in the show notes in the usual place. Please buy a ticket. Please come along. Please bring your mates, even if they don't know the final word. If they like cricket, they're going to enjoy that night, especially having the chance to hear from Glenn himself. Look, that's the end of our, I suppose, various activities at the moment. Goodness gracious me, it's not the end of your activities, though. You are absolutely on Media Street, Baz. I see you hosting the wrestling. You've been on all over Channel 7. You've been doing all the social media stuff with the Melbourne Renegades. And then I saw on the weekend pop up, you were delivering the first celebrity ball of the WBBL season. Bharat Sundaresan, when I first come across you, when you first rocked up, well, before you came to Australia, earlier than that, but when you first rocked up in the country as a new Australian to now being dubbed a celebrity, that's quite the tale. You must be loving this. I mean, you can be modest about it, but you must be loving the attention at some level.
Oh, it's great fun. And because it's everything seems to be a new challenge, or everything's more different to the other thing, and it just again, mostly things that I've never done before. Like the Melbourne Renegades thing was going to Melbourne on a very cold day a couple of months ago, and shooting for 6 hours, where I had to indulge with some other celebrities, which included Alistair Nicholson. Do some batting bowling, but more than anything, just play a character. And on the side, I've been working on my heel character, so I just kind of did that. And I was the shit talker on the show. Simon Helmet is such a cool guy to do that with as well, but he was a little taken aback with how much shit talking I indulged in on camera. And then this Sunday, I should say, I didn't even know I was going to do it, Adam. I got the call the previous evening at 6 p.m. from the strikers, and they said, "Oh, we've never done this before, and we're all really excited if you could do it." And I was going there anyway. It so happened that I was taking my cousin and my nieces, who I'm trying to get into cricket. And my biggest fear was, imagine, right, if their cool uncle makes a fool of himself in front of, 5,000-6,000 people on their first day at a cricket ground, that they're never going to play cricket again or even come to a cricket ground. And I even spoke about them. I said, they did a bit of an interview before the ball, and I spoke about them. So, yeah, I was really hoping to just land the ball on the pitch, but just, all that experience playing under your captaincy, Adam, I think must have come in handy. I just landed the ball exactly where I wanted it to, and it knocked back middle stump, and it sent it flying. And then it was, and there was a lot of pressure on me because all the players stood around, they were not too far away, and obviously some of them are well known to me and you. Amanda Jade Wellington was there, Gemma Barsby was there, Megan Shute was ready to give me a high five depending on how it went, and it went off pretty well. So I'm very proud of it, and I'm just glad that my nieces will continue calling me Cool Uncle B and not turn around whenever I look at them.
Yeah, well, if there ever was a bowl-off and needed to call upon someone, we've seen international bowlers struggle to hit the stumps in the pressure of that, but you hit middle stump out of the ground with all the television cameras on you, so it's an easy clip to find if you wish. And yeah, we're going to be, you don't know this, Brat, but you've got at least a couple of games to play in Sri Lanka under my captaincy
Ooh,
in
yes.
February. I'm working on 3 fixtures for us between the test matches, provided they are where I'm told they're going to be. That's not publicly been announced yet, but
Yeah.
you like to believe the intel you get 3 months out from a series or 2.5 months out from the series is close to correct. We'll see how we go. Right, we've got so much to tear into here. Why don't we start with the news that broke? Well, I say broke, was announced today that Andrew McDonald has signed a 2-year contract extension as the Aussie coach, which is going to take him through to the end of 2027. Not unexpected in terms of what he has been setting up for with this Australian team under his tutelage. But it is a fairly exhausting job being the Aussie coach, remembering that he's doing it across formats, which means being on the road. I remember Darren Lehman once said to us that he was out of his own bed for over 300 nights per year. Trevor Bayliss used to say similar things when he was in charge of England. So it's a huge personal decision for him, I reckon, McDonald, going around in this way. But it takes him through in that 2027, which will feel like 2023, away in India for test matches, England as well for an Ashes, and the sesquicentenary test in the March of 2027, and then a one-day World Cup, which is spliced in the middle of that, where there'll be the defending champions. So it does rather hint that the Cummins-McDonald axis will continue for an entire cycle, which is hugely unusual. But I suppose that says a little bit about how timely their appointments were back in 2021-22.
And how well they have bonded with each other, the environment that they have created within that Australian dressing room, and also the team that he's built around him, whether it's Michael Divinato or Daniel Vittori or Andre Borowick, or everyone. I mean, not just the coaches, the whole team management. And, we're so fortunate to see them around the world, on test tours and ICC tournaments. And I mean, there is a lot of bonhomie too within that camp. Like, there's the coaching group, but also between the coaches and the players. And I guess it helps that most of them, maybe not Michael Divinato to that extent, but Andrew McDonald and George Bailey and even Andre Borowick, they're all kind of contemporaries to a lot of these players. So I think that's played a big role in that as well. So there is no generational divide, and we've seen that impact many dressing rooms, not just in cricket, but most sports around the world. So I think that has really helped. And so his previous, I think it would have ended in 2026, right? At the start of 2026, if he hadn't got the extension. So, and it would have been a tough year for anyone new to come in with, that extremely crazy schedule for, and I don't know about you, Adam. I saw the schedule and I was kind of fretting about it. The fact that I might have to start preparing Isha for 2027 from now onwards, considering how busy it's going to be.
Yeah.
But it would have been quite a challenge to throw someone into the deep end straight away. So it's great he gets to defend the World Cup crown. He like a lot of others, like Nathan Lyon might still be there, who knows, gets a chance to do what they couldn't do last year, which is win a series in England, not just retain the Ashes. And obviously the final frontier is always there. Now that New Zealand have done it as well, can Australia go and beat India in India, and possibly 2 World Test Championship crowns to be added to the one that he's already won as coach. So, there's no secret, I'm a big fan of what Andrew McDonald has done for this team, and also the way he thinks about cricket. And I have some great conversations with him whenever we meet at the cricket. And it's good. I have 4 more years to do that, and also to watch his young son Oliver grow into this cricket. Like, I've been seeing him since he was 8 years old in the nets. As you know, I've been his pseudo batting coach or consultant once a year. So which also kind of tells you, I think Oliver's at that age probably where Andrew feels like he can still travel a lot, and in 4 years time, he'll be in his early teens, I assume, or mid-teens, and he'll get more family time. That is, Oliver will be in his mid-teens, or Andrew McDonald. But no, it's good news for Australia. It just gives them that stability. And you're right, I think that also means that Cummins is not going anywhere as captain either.
Yeah, and he hinted this as well, Cummins, a couple of months ago. He did a really good interview with on the Great Cricketer last week, Cummins, where he had this put to him, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I don't think he saw himself being a long-term captain. I think at the time when he took over, he referred to a time when he would be a senior player as a post captaincy I guess in an England context, senior pro. But now there's an acceptance that he is in the right spot to keep doing it. It hasn't detracted from his cricket at all, really. I heard someone speculate this recently that it's nonsense. Watch the way Pat Cummins bowled last summer, and you get it, and indeed at the World Cup last year when he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. The captaincy does not detract from Pat Cummins, the cricketer. It only enhances it. The most recent Test match he played, the way he stuck fat with Alex Carey at the end to get them over the line in a close run chase, and a number of other instances where Pat's been crucial at the end, not least the World Cup game against Afghanistan, indeed the World Cup semi-final. I must be missing some here. Edgbaston with Nathan Lyons. Yeah. So, yeah, he steps up to meet the challenge, not being daunted by it, and you'd expect that with his character. So, that's great for Aussie cricket. And where it all fits into, you start sort of, it's impossible not to look to the future about where this might land. And look, the Nathan McSweeny, Momentum, if you want to call it that, as Geoff and I have in the past, around where he fits into this. And we were really lucky to have Alex Malcolm join us as the co-host of The Final Word last week. And he's been writing about this and talking about this for a while, that McSweeny does tick a few boxes for Australia in terms of being a young player who's versatile, who's coming into peak form at the right time. He made a century on Friday, 137 out of 218 for South Australia in the one-day stuff. He's now made over 450-odd runs at 107 for South Australia across formats so far this season. Captain of Australia A, they play India A tomorrow. So in a way, he's got his destiny in his own hands. If he does well in that fixture, he might find his way to the front of the queue. But the reason I raise that in the leadership context is, per what Alex said last week, they do see him as the right kind of character, that if he can get into the team and do well, that might be who they look to next, even though he's not in the Aussie team right now. You often hear that expression, well, the next captain of this team may not be in the 11 yet. Well, this might be literally the case with McSweeny. And again, it's not going to be gifted to him. He's going to have to perform if he gets there at the top level. But just very occasionally, doesn't happen often, but very occasionally things line up perfectly for a cricketer. And it feels like that might be happening for the South Australian right now.
It certainly is. Talk about timing, right? Everything in life is timing, but especially cricket selection, right? That's where timing really comes to the fore. And ever since he's been earmarked to be a potential leader within Australian cricket and even a Test captain, his first-class average has picked up. George Bailey in particular was the first to kind of tag him as that when they named him Australia A captain a couple of years ago. And at that point, his first-class average was in the late 20s. And in the 2 years since, now it's grown to the late 30s. So that's already a positive. So rather than being daunted by the pedestal he's been put on, he's only grown from there, and that's a great sign, especially when you're playing for a state like South Australia as well. Obviously, he's from Queensland. Queenslanders will be the first to tell you that. Where in South Australia, it's a difficult place to kind of focus on just your cricket, because the team doesn't win very often. It's good to see them make a good start to the Shield season this year. But and the pressure that comes from there, you don't get the kind of attention you do when you play for South Australia, like that you do if you play for New South Wales, Victoria, or even Queensland or Western Australia. So I think to overcome all of that and to have made the start he has, when suddenly the selectors are looking at him even more than before, kind of tells you that there is that character in him. And at 25, I mean, I know we'll talk about Sam Constas soon, but at 25, he's at that right age as well, right? I mean, he's not old, but he's seen enough of life to kind of get that maturity. And every time you hear him talk or, do an interview or whatever it is, that maturity really shines through. And for me, he is the front runner at the moment for that opening spot. He's the runs he scored this season, the 100 he made in the One Day Cup as well, the fact that he bats number 3, the fact that he's now openly talking about it as well. And if you're earmarked as a future leader and you're doing all of this right, and there is an opening, you kind of, I wouldn't say their hand is forced, but in many ways, you will not get a better time than this to blood him in.
Yeah, you put it well before. It's that classic timing is everything kind of thing, right? And at different points in in players' careers, it can work either way. I mean, I think about when Marcus Harris came into the Aussie Test team way back when. Now, timing was everything for him, right? There wouldn't have been a vacancy if not for the David Warner sandpaper ban and the way it played for him then. Now, he's on the other side of that now, right? I actually do feel sorry for Marcus Harris, by the way. I want to say, for the record, that there's a lot of like, oh, well, Bancroft and Harris are now put to one side. They're looking to a younger man. I get it. I'm not saying it's not an idea that might. I mean, this is we'd said before. McSweeny might be the ideal pick right now, and who knows, Constas might still be the bolter. They're both playing together for Australia, eh? With Harris, with Bancroft in this game. I'm not saying it's a bad off, but still, there is there are a number of storylines running through that 4-day game that begins on Thursday. But, you know, Harris has done just about everything you can ask of the guy, short of making runs against New South Wales last week, which would have been the cherry on top. But he has gone away and made bulk runs for the Vicks, lots of runs away from home in England in conditions where there was a perception that he might be vulnerable to the moving ball. Well, you know, he's neutralised that to the extent to which one can at the level below. And been Victoria's most productive player over a number of years. So I feel for him, remembering he was only jettisoned from the test side in the Ashes of 21-22 because Khawaja made twin tons. And if not for that, Harris would have made it through the rest of that series instead of wearing a high-vis vest for the next 12 months. So he is bloody stiff. But, you know, the bigger picture here is that they're looking to build a top 6 or a top 7 who can be dependable. And Dan Bredig had a good piece in the paper yesterday, which seemed pretty well sourced. Like, you know, everyone's banging on about who's going to bat in what position. Well, the key challenge for Australia since the middle of the Ashes in 2023 has been lack of tons. Yeah, Marsh at Leeds, but since then, Warner at Perth on a flatty on day one, which was a great 100, but nevertheless that you'd expect an Australian to capitalise after winning the toss there. Cameron Green, outstanding at Wellington at number 4. Well, he's not available this summer. Travis Head at Adelaide last year against the Windies, which ended up being quite an important innings, but it was his one big contribution of the year. Very little apart from that. So whoever they pick, you know, I guess my parting thought here would be that the side that Andrew McDonald has overseen in the last few years, I expect will be an awful lot different to the team that he is looking after between now and the end of 2027. There's going to be a lot of change.
A lot of change, and just on that point of runs being the currency, I think I wrote a column probably last weekend or so about the same thing you were mentioning there. Like, you know, yes, you can focus on who's the next opener, but Australia's big issue has been the top 4. I mean, last summer was supposed to be the fill your boots and, you know, a kind of stat pad your way into, like, you know, a better averages kind of summer against Pakistan and West Indies. But you just look at where Steve Smith and Manas's test averages are right now. Steve Smith's has dropped to 56, 56, and it's the first time it's been 56 or lower since December 2015. And you look at Manas's, which is like Manas's average is 49.56, and it's the first time it's dipped under 50 since November 2019. So you know, it is a pretty rapid fall for them. Like, you know, you always think of Manas Labuschagne because he had that great run as being right there up with Steve Smith, right? Because he averaged in the 60s for so long. But at 49, you're decent. I mean, you're good, or you're very good, I would say, but you're not a great, you're not outstanding, where Manas used to be for 2 or 3 summers. So if Australia really need to, you know, I mean, we'll talk about India and their issues later, but if Australia really want to shut India out, you'd think Steve Smith and Manas, like 3 and 4, will have to really contribute a lot. And look, it's not just those two. Even Usman Khawaja, for Test Player of the Year in 2023, 2 half centuries across 7 tests for him in Australia and New Zealand last summer. So, I mean, there are a lot of batting concerns for Australia to take care of alongside the opening combination. And just on the fact that, you know, Andrew McDonald and the team that he will have in 2027, you would assume Usman Khawaja would not be there. And who knows, it could be McSweeny and Sam Constas together, or maybe they'll find another opener in that time as well. We'll have to wait and watch. But in the in the present or in the now, I think Australia just need to have a summer where their top 4, especially 3 and 4, really fire, and they'll need that against Bumrah and go. You know, whatever is happening in India right now, India will be India, the India we expect once they land on Australian shores.
Yeah, I watched Smith bat at the Junction Oval on Friday, and I think they'll be buoyed by that. He only made about 50 odd, so it wasn't a match winning 100 or anything quite like that, but he looked sharp, and that was after the double failure in the Shield game. That was just a way to, I guess, a circuit breaker of sorts. And it was against Peter Siddle, by the way, who picked up Pfeiffer. He hit Smith in the box and hit him in the shoulder next ball. And Siddle was bowling quick, Pfeiffer at age 40. Anyway, that's by the by. Bads, we're going to jump in here and take a quick break. And we've got so much more to get through. Initially on Australia, then we'll go far beyond as well. This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. Adam Collins and Bharat Sundaresan with you. Before we get back to our primary conversation today, a reminder, this show's brought to you by Ambassador Cruise Line. Baz, I'm not sure how much you've been taking in of this on Ambassador in the last few weeks, but I can tell you this much, that cricket in December is a bit of a misnomer in the chilly UK. This is prepared copy. Work with me here. The winter months are dominated by weather warnings and Man City buying any kind of threat to their petrostate Premier League dominance. Very good. Ambassador Cruise Line is giving you the chance to shake that notion and be, I'm not even sure what that word says, by the awesome foursome who know a thing or two about winter cricket. I think that says entertained. Anyway, doesn't matter. Speak deep into the night with aggers and blowers. Talk about their favourite tours. That's a good idea. You can go back to the glory days of when the Windies were dominating, for instance. They can talk about that all night long. Of course, Aggers made his test debut against the Windies many moons ago. As for Gucci and Alex Tudor, they have their fair share of stories as well. And those legendary pantomimes in Australia, of course, Gooch there in dress up in 94, 95, for instance, all while stopping off at the Netherlands, Belgium, France at affordable quality on the Ambassador ship. And because of the relationship with us, Baz, how's this? 559 quid between the 12th and the 19th of December, right? You couldn't get an Airbnb in any of these places for this, by the way. Including Amsterdam, you would struggle to get accommodation in any of the places, Antwerp and Amsterdam being two Olympic cities, for the price that's being advertised per person. And then you extrapolate, you add to that, the Final Word 10 discount code, 10% off. You'll be sailing away to beat the winter blues. AmbassadorCruiseLine.com. In the show notes, Ambassador Cruise Line giving you the chance to cruise with cricket legends this December. If I wanted to get away from dreary old England in December and I wanted to talk shit about the game we love, there is no better way of doing it. There's 2 test matches going on during this, one in Hamilton and one in Brisbane, I'm pretty sure. You can watch cricket all night with Aggers and Gucci, pour through it all with them, then wake up in the morning and talk about it some more. Formal events, informal events, we've been really glad to have Ambassador with us this month. So as we're winding towards the end of October with them, a final prod. Go there, join some Final Word pals. Be part of it between the 12th and the 19th of December.
Graham Gooch. You can maybe learn a little about what to expect with the Ashes next summer. I know we won't be there, Adam. We'll be here in sunny Brisbane, but if not for that, both of us would be on that cruise anytime.
Kind of thing I think you and I would quite enjoy, either side of the mic on